The Bard's Tale. Now we're on my turf. In 1990, I was really into RPGs on my computer. And for some strange reason, a lot of those RPGs wound up getting Famicom ports from everyone's favorite music company, Pony Canyon. In fact, of their 8 remaining games on the Famicom, 7 of them are ports of computer games, and 6 of those were Western RPGs. So they really swing heavily in that direction now. The Bard's Tale was essentially the successor to Wizardry. Not directly, of course, they were still making Wizardry games, but it was a first-person dungeon crawler structured heavily on Dungeons & Dragons, featuring immense trap-filled dungeons, and some absolutely brutal, player-hostile mechanics. If you wanted to play The Bard's Tale today, a remake was released in 2018 of the original 3 games, that smooths over a lot of the rough edges and makes it easier for people to get into the game. So I'm pretty familiar with Bard's Tale. Probably not familiar enough at this point that I could quickly run through the whole game, but I've played the first couple hours of parties enough times that I should have been able to just zip through my recording. Well, this version of the Bard's Tale is like the Funhouse Mirror version. You can get a general idea of the shape of the original there, but all the details are heavily distorted. However, it did carry over one thing from the original. I started out with the usual steps, creating my party, generating random stats over and over again until I remembered, yeah, I have to get on with it. Went to the shop, which was not where it usually is, and bought some basic starting equipment. It took about 20 minutes to get me all set up like this, and then I wandered around to get into a fight. And in that first encounter, my toughest character was killed before I got a single turn. And yes, that is absolutely the Bard's Tale experience. Fortunately for me, the previous owner of this cartridge had a party ready to go take on the end of the game, so I could use them to poke around a little bit. I don't want to dwell too much on the differences between the Famicom version of the Bard's Tale and the computer versions. So to keep it simple, the Famicom version is stripped down. Fewer classes, smaller maps, a lot fewer spells. Basically, the whole thing is simplified. The plot of the Bard's Tale is that an evil wizard has frozen the countryside around the city of Scarta Bray. Now monsters roam the streets, and people are getting desperate, and so a party of brave new adventurers set out to find a way to get to the wizard and stop him. Parties in the Bard's Tale can consist of up to 6 characters, and they can be one of 6 character classes: warrior, knight, rogue, bard, sorcerer, and warlock. You generate your own party with random stats, and once you're set, you assemble them and send them out into the streets. Wandering the streets is dangerous though, so the first thing you do is go next door and get some weapons. And for the Bard's Tale, it's really recommended that you generate a ton of throwaway characters and transfer all of their gold to the characters you want to keep. You don't start with nearly enough cash to properly outfit everyone, and death is just one unlucky encounter away. Once you're ready, it's time to explore the city, and you'll find hints as you poke your nose into taverns and the odd corners about where you could find some dungeons. Anytime you're exploring, no matter where it is, you could have a random encounter, and monsters may attack you in up to 3 groups, with as many monsters in the groups as they feel like. The first 3 characters in your party can engage in melee attacks, while the rear 3 would have to use spells. The most important character, obviously, is the Bard. You can't beat the game without one, and they have all of their abilities right from the start. They sing their spells, and can do that once per level without recovering. So at level 1, they can sing once, level 2, they can sing twice, and so on. They have to get a drink at a bar or tap a wineskin to recover their songs. When you're starting out, it only takes 20 experience points to level up the first time, which you could easily get in one fight. Once you're ready, you have to go to the advancement board, who will tell you if you're capable of leveling up. This is also where magic-using classes, like the Sorcerer and Warlock, can pay to unlock additional spells. As you're exploring, the B button brings up the menu where you can take actions such as using items, casting spells, checking your character's status, which is also where you go to equip things, or making party members fight each other for your amusement. And that's the gist of how you play the Bard's Tale. Even scaled down for the Famicom, it's still a pretty sprawling game. In Japan, this version of the Bard's Tale seems to be pretty well regarded. I found a lot of people who were excited to play the game. Perhaps that's why Pony Canyon also decided to port the second Bard's Tale game to the Famicom. We don't get the third Bard's Tale game, or the construction set for that matter, but the game that was intended to be Bard's Tale 4 does get a Famicom port. It's kind of hard for me to judge this one, even more so than my usual issues with RPGs and my time constraints. I know the Bard's Tale, and this is not the Bard's Tale. But that said, it is another take on the same concept, and I think I would revisit this one just for the sake of reviewing a familiar game through a different lens. This isn't a bad version of the Bard's Tale, but it is a different one.